Hello, everyone. Hi there. Good afternoon. I will give it a few minutes here. This live was scheduled yesterday, so I'm not sure how many people will show up, but wanted to pop on here for just a little bit of time so that we can have a little time for questions or anything you guys want to talk about. Um, but I will give everybody a few more minutes before I introduce myself and before we talk about specific things related to the PMHNP role. I did a live a little bit ago, a few weeks ago, and it went well. And just wanted to pop back on to have another opportunity for you guys to ask me any questions if anything comes up so that we can address those and chat accordingly. Okay, so I'll give it a few more minutes here. Hello there. I see that I have a couple of people that have joined. Let me know in the chat who you are and possibly where you're from, and we'll get started here in just a few minutes. This is going to be very informal. It's not meant to be formal, but it is meant to have a session where you guys can ask me questions about the PMHNP role. Thank you for those that are joining now. I see you guys are joining in. So, like I said, just drop your name possibly and where you're from, so that I know who's here. It's very difficult to know who's on from this side of things. Um, but my goal is just to share a few minutes with you guys to open up the floor for questions here in just a few minutes. So I will give it a couple more minutes before we um, open that up so that we can allow some people to come in. I do realize also that this is around the time that most people are getting off work. I just finished up with work, and so it's now 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. So this may not be the best time for people to join. But I see you here. If you could just let me know where you're from, if you can hear me okay, and if you have questions, we'll get started with those in just a few minutes. Hi, Tom. Hi there. I know you and I have been back and forth a few times here. Thanks for joining. You finally joined, or you were able to join me here. So good. Thanks for joining today. I'll just give it a couple more minutes for other people to come on, and then I'll introduce myself, and then we'll open it up for questions. And Tom, you've had some really good ones, by the way, so far. So I don't know if you have more, but we can definitely talk through those if you do. Okay, very good. Can you hear me okay? Can you guys hear me okay? Any concerns with the audio? Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me in the chat. Very good. Thanks. I'm glad you figured that out. Yeah, I believe it's more of a new feature for YouTube. So going live is not something I was used to either. So we may not have many people join for that reason too, but we can definitely chat for a few minutes. Can you hear me okay? Any concerns with hearing me? The audio, is it okay from your side? Any issues there? Okay, very good. So I will go ahead and get started. Just want to thank you for taking a few minutes to join me. My name's Camelia. I am a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. I have actually been practicing for about 5 years, currently in the state of North Carolina. And my trajectory and what's led me to this point, I was a nurse for about 9 years before I started to go back to pursue my PMHNP degree, and worked in various areas of nursing. Eventually got to a point where I knew that I wanted to go back to behavioral health. I can still vividly remember actually my clinical experience in nursing school. but went to other routes of nursing before I got back to behavioral health. And did that while I was in school. It was the best decision I could have made. It really helped to prepare me for a lot of things as a PMHNP. And I have been a practicing PMHNP for 5 years. So far in North Carolina, I've worked outpatient. I've done telehealth, a lot of telehealth in the last 2 years. And I also have worked in the emergency room where I see more acute conditions in the behavioral health ED. So I stay busy. I'm actually joining you guys after working by telehealth today. So this won't be long, but my goal of this channel, it was originally developed so that um, I could share my lived experience with you guys as a PMHNP, some of the good, the bad, the ugly, some of the struggles, some of the highlights, some of the considerations, and just to offer some tips and encouragement for you guys along the way, whether you're a pre-nursing student, you're in nursing school and looking ahead to pursue an MSN degree, and or if you are currently a practicing PMHNP or you are certified in another specialty and you're considering the PMHNP route. So I know there's a lot of different hats that you guys wear, and I get questions from sort of all over. Those that aren't nurses and those that are already practicing. So my goal is just to continue to offer some support, mentorship, coaching, whatever it kind of comes our way in terms of just building rapport here as well as networking, which is another focus of this channel. So thanks for joining. I see you, Tom, here. Thanks for joining. Um, I'm actually going to open this up for some questions. This will be recorded, so we will be able to later come back to this if you are missing this live in real time. But this will be something that I'll also share later if you want to share it with others based on some of the questions that we get today. Okay. So I now want to open this up for any questions that you have. Some of you may have been holding on to those questions before coming on today, but I do want to just give this open the floor up for you guys to ask me any questions. As far as I know, the only way to ask those questions is through the chat. So the chat is on, it's live. So definitely I can see those once you guys submit any questions. So please feel free to go ahead and open up and ask me any questions that you'd like, anything you've considered regarding the PMHNP uh, career and or my journey specifically, or any questions that you have along your journey thus far. So I'll just open that up for you guys to ask questions now. Any questions from you guys? And it may take a little bit of time to actually type that in the chat. But like I said, the best way to do that is to ask questions in the chat and I can respond from there. And this again will be recorded. Any questions from you guys? Those of you that are here. Do you have any questions for me about the PMHNP route, the journey, career, or anything along your journey so far? Any questions? Very good question. Very good question. I have to be honest. So the question, guys, is have I considered moving to an FPA state? An FPA state is basically full independent practice or full practice authority. And the question is whether I've considered moving to a state where I can to open up my own business. I will tell you that I have considered that. However, just kind of with the seasons of life right now, it's not the best decision to make for me personally, but I do have a network of people that I have been sort of, questioning and asking questions about that process. So that if at any point I decide that that is going to be best for me, then I will consider that. I will say that what prompted me more so to do that was my short bout over the last 2 years working in private practice. It wasn't my practice, it was a practice owned by another person, another provider, and working alongside that and kind of learning the ins and outs of it. Owning your own business in this field is not easy. I will say that I've learned a lot about accepting insurance versus not accepting insurance. some of the hurdles that you have to go through with that. So it definitely is a consideration, but one that I don't feel like I can take on at this point, just from where I am life wise, but also with some of the hurdles that you have to be ready to tackle when you get ready to do that. So great question. And I don't know. I think you're from Ohio. So is that an FPA state? I'm not sure if that is. Are you in an FPA state? Okay, maybe we'll get to that in a little bit. But there are more and more states that it's a reduced state. Okay, yeah. Really, North Carolina is not even a reduced state. I will say that it's pretty strict. There's been a lot of pushback with becoming, or the trajectory of becoming an FPA state. So it's challenging, and it's also more challenging that everything's not universal. So going from one state to the next, you can expect quite a different experience as a PMHNP, in terms of what you can do, and also the collaborative practice agreements and working with a supervising physician. I have to have all those things in place right now. So I know that maybe we'll get there one day, but definitely right now, it's just sort of all over the place in terms of which states are full practice authority, which aren't, and some of the hurdles with that, as you if you move as well as a PMHNP, just considering that. Yeah. Um, we have more and more that are sort of gaining traction with that, though. So, yeah, very good question. What other questions do you guys have for me right now? Anything related to the PMHNP role, the career, where you are on your journey? I'm happy to answer anything or possibly give any tips around anything. I don't like to share things I haven't experienced. So if I don't know the answer, I will definitely try and point you in the right direction. But this is really the goal of this channel, is to really be as authentic as I can be with my experience, and not provide anything that I'm not aware of. Okay. Um, any other questions for me, guys? I'm going to hang around here for at least another 10 minutes or so. But I see a couple of more of you joining. This session is just meant to ask questions that I can answer for you in real time. And I have another question. Thanks, Tom, for that. You bet the answer is different for every school. Do you know about taking the classes to get both an FNP and PMHNP? You're in core classes and you're taking pathophysiology. Yeah, so there are very few dual certification programs. I haven't been down that road in terms of knowing many people who've done that. Most of the practicing providers that I work with have either pursued one first and then the other, and really what they've done is a post certification, or a graduate certificate for the other, in many cases. So I know that those programs exist where you can obtain both. What seems to be like it would be more of a concern is obtaining clinicals for both, because those are two very different routes. So I'm not sure how that's set up either, but it seems like you would need a lot of time to be able to commit to the different areas that you would have to navigate through in clinicals as well. Um, but like I said, there are multiple providers that I work with that are PMHNPs and FNPs, but most have done one before the other, and there are quite a few that have done just a post certification, which gives a little less time for you to complete, but for the most part, it is a very similar process to doing the full degree as an MSN for the FNP or PMHNP track. So yeah, very good. So thanks for that question. I hope that answers it a little bit. That's not an area that I've come across a lot. There aren't many programs that exist for that. So thanks, Tom. I have Jan here. Thanks, Jan, for your question. You already have a bachelor's and a master's in social work. Okay. And tell me what your question is. Are you considering a PMHNP, that the route, or what are you considering now? If you want to just briefly give me a synopsis of where you are now and what your goals are. Yeah, and I'll tell you just from a general stance, if you're considering the PMHNP route, and you have a bachelor's and a master's degree, some of those courses may translate, but there are some non-traditional programs that allow you to have a degree in some courses, prerequisite courses in other fields, that will get you to the PMHNP career. However, there aren't many of those non-traditional programs, and I always say that, there is some value, I will say, in having some nursing background, because really the basis of a PMHNP, it's not that you'll be practicing as a nurse. The roles are much different, but there are some skills that you can attain that are highly valuable for transitioning from an RN to a PMHNP. Doesn't mean it can't be done. I think this was addressed before as well, but some of your classes may or may not translate depending on your program. And if you are in a non traditional program, that could look much different as well. Yeah, very good. And I don't know what your exact question was around it, or if you were just making a comment about it, but that's the general idea if you already have other degrees in other fields. Okay. Um, so very good. So just giving more information here. You are registered to take prerequisites for the associate's degree in nursing, which will allow you to get directly into the PMH and master's program. Yeah, very good. So that is helpful, because most states, as you navigate becoming a PMHNP, require that you continue your RN license, and so it's very good to have that as a foundation, before you pursue, become a PMHNP. So it's good to know. I say, usually the associate's degree is a very appropriate route. There are programs that allow you to go from an ADN to an MSN. They may take a little bit longer, but in my experience from working with those that have actually done that, they've had good success with it, and haven't had any real issues with it. It's good for you, and congratulations to you. It sounds like you are on a track that you want to be on, and you'll possibly be on the PMHNP track very soon. So very good. And you can let me know if you have other questions from what I just said, or if any of you have other questions, you can definitely put those in the chat. You guys have very good questions. Very good questions. And I know sometimes these things are very individualized, so it's hard to um so you're asking if you're too old. Well, no, you're never too old. I will say that. And I say that because this is a field that you can always learn and grow, and it doesn't matter what age you are. You always are learning and growing. And so I think as long as you have the ability to learn and grow, then there's never a such thing as being too old, in terms of starting a degree or starting over. I encourage people to do what actually fits your passion, what fits your why. And for many, it's difficult to find that early on in life. Sometimes it takes a few experiences for you to actually get to that point. So I think there's no such thing as being too old as long as you can learn and grow. And I also think that it's more based in what you can offer to patients in this field based on your why, what drives you to do that, and why you want to be in this field. And I think that weighs a lot more than your age. So I do wish you the best on this journey. I have another question. Should you start getting dress clothes for clinicals, or is it usually scrubs? Okay, good question. So that depends on, actually, very good. You're welcome, Jan. So there's another question about clinicals and showing up for clinicals, I will say that that really depends on your program, and it really depends on um, your your site. I've worked in different areas where scrubs were not promoted to wear because it was deemed as a way that patients saw us more in a medical light. And patients seemingly were more comfortable with providers that were in normal clothes. So that may or may not make sense to you guys now, but I have actually experienced that with working that wearing scrubs sometimes can give a less open feel for patients in the mental health field. And many times they're more receptive, a little more open. You can build better rapport with patients when you're wearing normal clothes. And sometimes even the lab coats can be discouraged in some settings based on that. So it's a good question, but really, in terms of the actual requirement for that, it really depends on your program and your clinical site as to what is required. Okay, very good question. So I see a couple more people that have joined. And I have another question. Thank you for those that have joined. This is just really a Q&A session, so we're covering a few questions about the PMHNP journey, whether that is you're on that journey now, or you're a pre-nursing student, you're a nurse considering the journey, or if you are possibly you have a different certification and you're planning to pursue this route. So this is open for any questions that you guys have. Put those in the chat as they come up. And I'll go ahead and address the next one that says, was the PMHNP really difficult, and which was harder, the ADN, BSN, or master's program? Okay, very good question. So there's two different questions there. I will say that the PMHNP program was challenging. However, I do feel that my experience as a nurse really assisted me through that process and held a lot of weight. And I say that from the perspective. So my journey, actually, I was a nurse for 9 years before I decided to pursue the program, and so 11 years total before I became a PMHNP. And I think what that did offer me was more experience, some clinical experience that really helped me in terms of moving forward with the program and learning some of the nursing specific things in terms of education, answering questions, taking exams. I really think that prepared me a lot for the PMHNP route. This is very subjective, so I will say, for me, it was challenging. I was in a non-traditional program. It was a hybrid program with some distance education, some in person. And I will say that that part in itself was a little more challenging. I found that the distance education side of it was actually more than I expected. And so it required more time, it required more, just more flexibility. However, the programs are definitely doable. You just have to be able to commit enough time, prepare for having that time to study. And so for me, it was challenging, but it was doable. And I also saw it as a temporary season. And so getting through those 2 years, it was challenging, but it definitely a doable thing. Um, and your second question was which was harder. It's hard to say which was harder because I feel that the BSN. So my foundation was a bachelor's degree, a BSN. And it's hard to say which was harder than compared to an MSN program because really I feel that the ADN and BSN that route actually prepares you for an MSN. So they can't really be compared. I found that the MSN required more time to study and more application versus the BSN. As a This also had to do with my experience, kind of going through the process of becoming a nurse, in addition to learning the nursing role. I feel that that was more challenging because it was new for me, whereas the MSN is more of uh, it's kind of a building block the BSN is a building block for the MSN. So it feels like a continuation versus starting from the beginning, if that makes sense. So I think you pursuing the ADN first is going to be great. You're going to see that the foundation has a lot of value, and also the MSN is sort of a continuation of that. That you probably won't be as challenged as someone who's either never had the experience or hasn't pursued an ADN or BSN prior to the program. Okay. I hope that helps you a little bit. I know some of these things are a little subjective, but that's just been my experience with pursuing the PMHNP certification. Very good questions, though. You guys have any other questions for me? You're welcome. No problem. What other questions do you have about the PMHNP route, the career, where you are on your journey, or anything else before we end today? And I really appreciate you guys taking time to join. Some have been off and on here, but this is great that you've come with so many questions and you guys honestly keep me challenged and probed here. Was your clinical time more hectic because of the class aspect added to the clinical time? Um, No, I feel like they worked pretty good together. It really augmented that for me. So at the point in most programs where you actually have to start clinicals, you are still doing classwork, so it does require more time. But really, the goal of those clinical sites, your rotations with those particular classes, it's really to work together so that you're really able to apply what you're learning in the classroom. So it really does go hand in hand in most MSN programs where it's challenging from a time perspective because you have to commit to the classes and clinicals. I always tell people that clinicals are like a part time to full time job. And when you get to your full rotation, you are going to spend a lot of hours, just as you would with a job, um, getting your clinical hours. Those hours have a lot of value because you're actually applying what you're learning in the classroom. But I didn't find it more hectic. I thought that they worked well together, and it actually helped me on both sides with learning the classroom aspect of it because I saw it in real time with a lot of different things, but also learning, being able to apply what I did learn in the classroom to clinicals. So I hope that helps a little bit. And maybe I'm not sure if that's the question you were asking, but I didn't find it more hectic just from a time perspective. It required a lot more time. Okay. The next question is, can I go directly into the MSN PMHNP program, or should I get bedside experience first and then apply? Okay. I'll answer that question first, and there's a second question here. So there are some programs that require you to actually have bedside experience before you go back to be in an MSN program. Most of those programs require at least 2 years. However, that has changed a lot, particularly since we have so many more programs available now, and particularly since a lot of these programs are offered with distance education. I will say, though, that the should in this is, I don't like to say that you have to, but I will say that there's value. There's value in learning to work with patients. There's value in learning and really honing some of your nursing intuition. There is a such thing with that I think I still use to this day as a PMHNP. So it doesn't mean that it's required depending on your program, but it does mean that it could offer you a lot of value as you're progressing as an MSN. Although the roles look a lot different from being a bedside nurse to being a PMHNP or a provider, when you're in that realm, it looks a lot different. But there are still foundational aspects of bedside nursing that do fit really well into becoming being a PMHNP. So I think it could offer value, although it's not always expected and it's not always required. Okay. I also think that if you were going to do that, it's in terms of bedside nursing, maybe consider just behavioral health. I think that could offer you sort of double value in that you're going to be working with the population that you'll work with as a PMHNP, but also that nursing, just honing your nursing skills. So I think that could offer you something there too. Okay. The second question is, or you actually were saying that the PMHNP program that you want to apply for does not require any experience first. Okay. Yeah, and many of them don't anymore. When I came through back in 2017, even for like an FNP certification and many of the PMHNP programs, it was required that you had at least 1 to 2 years. I did not attend a program that required me to have behavioral health experience. It did require that I had nursing experience. However, I just decided that I wanted to do the behavioral health experience on my own. Okay, so that's not a requirement for a lot of programs, but like I said, it does offer you a lot of value, and that's something you can see well down the road once you become a PMHNP. Okay. Very good questions. I really want to thank you guys for answering or asking these questions. If I'll give it a couple more minutes here, we'll give it until 35 minutes, which we have about 4 more minutes. If you guys want to ask me any questions, any additional questions that you have, I also want to say that feel free to look in the description section of my channel. It does have a link for additional resources. It also has a link for uh, being able to contact me by email, joining me by on Facebook, just a few other avenues of communication. So sometimes people don't feel as comfortable just giving their general synopsis or personal synopsis here on these types of platforms. So definitely, if you have other questions that are more individualized, you can definitely message me through any of those platforms. Okay. Thank you, Tom. I really appreciate that. Thanks for being a follower as well. Thanks for all of you that have joined. Thanks for all of you that have subscribed to the channel. I really, really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. I also, I plan to continue to share my experiences. I want to give a really big shout out to those of you that have recently graduated. Th- those that have graduated from the PMHNP programs. I've spoken with quite a few students over these last couple of years, and I know that it's not been easy, but I do know that this is around the time I graduated in 2017 in May, and so I know that most of you that have finished this program appreciate that you have done that. You've survived the clinicals and finding the clinical sites. You've survived those pathophysiology courses and the harder courses in the MSN program. So, congratulations to you guys as well. Very good. Um, I don't think I have any more questions here. Shayna, thank you for being here. I do see you here. But if you guys have other questions, feel free to message me. All of the avenues of contact for me listed in the description channel. And I look forward to continuing to share videos with you guys. I'll share most of my experiences, and I hope that you guys will continue to listen and share any of the videos with anyone that you think could benefit from them. If you've not subscribed, I would appreciate if you could or you would. And I look forward to just continuing to engage with you guys as I continue my journey. And I'm also here to support and encourage you along yours. And I wish you guys to have a very good evening. And this will be recorded as well. So this will be up available for playback within the next 24 hours. You guys have a good evening. Thank you for joining. Bye bye.